Hello there. Hello, friends. It's me, Scott. What's going on? I hope everyone is safe and well. No, I'm not streaming Sudoku. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Is that my problem? If I stream Sudoku, I'd have more viewers. So, a few things today. One, outrageous. I've been having all these YouTube problems. It seems like it's not just me, though, and it seems like it's not my videos. So, if you're watching this on YouTube and the video and audio get way out of sync, that seems to happen. Hello, barking dog. Seems to happen on some resolutions and not on others, and happens on like this machine but not on my phone. So I'm sorry. I don't think it's me. I think it's YouTube. Secondly, I got content flagged for one of the pretzel songs, which is so not cool because like the whole point of the pretzel music that I play, the music that we've heard 7 trillion times now, is that I'm supposed to be able to use it for streaming, no problem. So I'm working on figuring that out, but like weird problems in YouTube stream land lately. So there's 2 things I want to do today. There's 3 things I want to do today. The first thing is pick some wallpaper. Life is yours. How is the music volume? Is it okay? I just don't even know anymore. So the most important thing is to pick a nice picture of Norway. This stylish person. Look at this stylish flower. You can't hear the music at all. How about that? You tell me I'm getting flagged for music that no one can even hear? What a disaster. I really should check these things myself, probably. It's there. It's there now, at least. Okay, does that mean it's too quiet? Well, okay, the song stopped right now. Wait for the song to come back. Okay. Should I move to Norway? Is that what needs to happen? What really, so if I'm going to leave this country, which I'm definitely strongly considering, that's a nice wallpaper. I feel like the only way it's going to happen is if I get a professorship somewhere. So I got to find if I really want to do that, I think it's that's the only reasonable way I can think of. Unless I just decide to show up in New Zealand one day. New Zealand's so far. Okay, so should we just watch Sudoku videos all day? Kind of want to. Let's open you to... Oh my gosh. I don't know if I would be... I'm sure you would find reasons to not like me as a professor. I'm sure there would be students that didn't like it. I've taught a fair number of workshops. I've only taught one college course. It was Type in Motion, so animated typography class. It was the only time that I've taught like a full proper semester. And I mostly liked it. There were some weird things about that school. It was actually the school where I went to undergrad. But I did kind of like it. But I had some very strict policies. Like I didn't get paid super well. So I tried to not do anything outside of class. And I tried to just have people kind of critique each other and grade each other's work. And it actually worked well. And for the most part, I think my students were pleased with me. Okay, the first thing is no exams. We're not gonna have exams. That's outrageous. This is the creative world. We don't care about scores. We care about what you produce. And actually, the thing I probably graded on more than anything personally, my grading was, did you do what you were supposed to? Like, did you meet the requirements? Because that is what the real world is defined by, more than anything else. Largely. In many ways, even more than skill. The operation of the world is largely defined by, hey, these are the parameters, this is the schedule, did you do the things? And if you did those things, and I felt like you worked, and even if what you made at the end was kind of a disaster, and it's school, you should be able to explore and sometimes make disasters. But even if you did those if you did the stuff, you got an A. You did the stuff, you met the schedule, you did what you were supposed to do, didn't miss deadlines. Or if you missed a deadline, you gave me ample notice for it, because, you know, sometimes deadlines slip in the real world. But I still didn't give a lot of A's because many students just couldn't do that part, which was kind of amazing to me, because you almost could have done, like, creatively and work-wise the bare minimum, and if you had met the parameters, I would have given you an A. But not everybody could handle that. So, oh yeah, with these, they ended up a little hazardy, sort of. This isn't what we ended up doing in the end. I kind of like what we did in the end, the tiling patterns. So there's all kinds of interesting tiling patterns. There's a whole... Oh, Jacqueline, you like this thing? Have you seen this thing? Jacqueline, I didn't even... Your name is so dark. So this was just another attempt at taking one of those 2D creatures and making them 3D. Yeah, so let's just look at Instagram. Talk about where we are a little bit. So last week we did these friends. This is not the... I don't want... Instagram, I wish you weren't owned by Facebook. It doesn't show things in chronological order. It shows it in whatever order that the algorithm is like decides it to be. So we did these just to decide, like, you know, just creature explorations, hand drawn, no tools made. It was just to make them just Illustrator, and then started kind of looking at these and talking about like developing some sort of creature taxonomy where it's like, okay, sort of this creature. There's like creatures that are a shape with an eyeball in the middle, and then sometimes there's multiple eyeballs in the middle. So that kind of addresses the bodies of some of these. Sometimes the middle has a hole in it and the eyeballs go around that. So that kind of also addresses this one and addresses this one and addresses this one. Sometimes there's a body. Sometimes the body and the eyeball are basically the same size, so you don't seem to have a body. Like this one and this one, I would essentially say the eyeball is 100% of the body. And sometimes you have a body that has things cloned around it, like this. And that's like a taxonomy that largely covers this stuff. This one's a little weird because the cloning has a pattern to it, but you could still imagine that. This one is especially weird because the eyeballs are on the cloned part. So we start to get into like more weird species, but at a high level, we're kind of at a point where we say there's a body and there's things around the body and there's eyeballs in the body. This one kind of breaks that, but if the body was just separate, it could be sort of the same genes as this, where it's just there's a shape that comes off and sometimes the eyeballs are in the shape. So we basically have creatures that have eyeball bodies and creatures that have stalk eyeballs. And that almost is enough to sort of cover the DNA here. Oh, look. Wait, what's going on over here? Hello, look, you're so red. Really pops. Are you bleeding? It could be. It could be that there's some, yeah, for sure. Or there could just be rules that determine where these things fall. Like under the hood, this really could be a triangular body, and there could be different cloning. So, but that's the right thinking. I think, if we're gonna pursue this idea, which I've worked on it a lot, so I probably should pursue it, is that there's some rotational symmetry. In fact, even I was realizing this morning is I don't have to really draw. I don't have to think about creatures. I really just have to think about a pie slice, because that's sort of the whole point of radial symmetry. If I can just decide what happens in one slice, I can just clone that slice around. So even though this looks weird, really this one slice, this little 3 thing here, is cloned and is cloned. And we could kind of just ignore this other one, or make it some species where we have the in-between guys too. So I think we're honing in on something that is like, yeah, these look very different, but I think there's some underlying form. They all have different flavors, yes. Well, it's not just sunk cost. There's definitely something to that. I mean, part of it is like I have a schedule and I have a budget, and even though the world's insane, I do need to kind of like run this like it's a real project, because it is, even though that like timing and everything is a little nuts. But it's unquestionable to me that like there's something in here that I'm really taken by that has to do with radial symmetry and biology and geometry and aesthetics. So like the radial symmetry, I feel good about. The idea of visitors creating their own creatures, I feel good about. The idea of those creatures in some way being made up of, like maybe the textures or parts of the museum, I feel good about. The things that I'm not sold on are, one, the user interaction part, like how do you make these things? Two, the underlying tech for making these things, like extruding geometry, whatever that is, I'm still not sold on that. And three, the fixture presentation, because it really seems like projection is not going to work, and that these have to be screens, which is a bummer. I mean, that's fine. Constraints are good because constraints define what a thing is. Like, constraints are boundaries that give something its form. So I'm all for constraints, but it's one of the annoying constraints with screens is they're usually big dumb rectangles, and I would prefer some interesting shapes. With EverQuest, I mean, it's tough. It's not easy. Wait, did they do radial things on the SNES? I guess you could. With the F mode, what was that thing called? Mode 7, the Mode 7 chip, you could do transformations. I mean, you're totally right. It's like very common in computer graphics, game sprite graphics, dating back forever. You would do maybe one half and not the other half, and then just mirror it or whatever. I don't think rotation was as common in SNES era, though. You'd have to mode test. That's a nice color. Look, test number 2. Is that official Draklin Blue? Draklin Blue, I call it. It's the Pantone color of the year. So, okay, so we have this. We felt good about this. And then we just decided to do some studies. Oh yeah, we're looking at more studies. Some studies, well, this one was a real thing. I don't know what to do with this. There's so much of these, many of these studies have potential that I would like to continue exploring. But here's where we are now, where we kind of take these and we look at what it's like to sort of extrude this and make it three-dimensional, mainly with the idea of we want these 3D so they look cool in the looking glass, but then we have so much to deal with in terms of ambient occlusion and shadows and a lot of stuff that it definitely complicates things, let's say. So that might be a darling that we need to murder. But then there's also this idea of once people create their little creatures, how will these creatures operate in their ecosystem? And maybe sometimes they're just swimming around, like we saw here, but I think sometimes they're doing sort of synchronized swimming dances. And the way I want to maybe do those synchronized swimming dances is to leverage tiling patterns. And so we did this one yesterday, and it has kind of an interesting, it's a certain kind of pentagonal tiling pattern. And there's a million amazing tiling patterns that use different kinds of geometry. Like here's the cool pentagonal one. So we could have done this one as a pentagonal tiling pattern. And here's a hexagonal tiling pattern. So the underlying geometry of the creatures maybe would help determine some tiling that they would do sometimes. Sometimes maybe it's just radial and they just spin around each other. So that's a very new idea, and I don't quite know what to do with it yet. I know I'm very taken with tiling patterns for sure. So eggs, yep, Lola spotted it. What do you see? This? It's funny. Yeah. When I was working on it, I was thinking like somebody's gonna just say this looks like an egg because of the color I picked. Which nobody thought that here. Really, they look like little creatures. But when the eyeballs, I guess it's because the eyeball's in the center. Once the eyeball looks around, I think it seems less egg-like. If we do, where's our creature creator? What? Is glitch just broken? I feel like everything's been breaking for me lately. So like, if we did this guy, this friend, and it was kind of like this. This is with the super formula. The super formula is really wonky. I like it, but I think I'm not going to use it. Maybe. And this guy only had one eyeball. And it was like this. I don't have good ways to pick the colors right now, unfortunately. But as long as the eyeball's looking around, I think that makes it seem more like a creature. Man, the 2D ones sure are easy. Sure is easy to do 2D versions of this. It sure is complicated to do the 3D versions, but if we're going to use the looking glass, they need to be 3D. It is a little glitchy. Glitch is glitchy. It's true. Oh, I would never do this to you. What cruel person would do something like this? What animal? What animal would do that? Okay, so the important things to do today are among the following. One of them is to look at this thing I've never used before, but I've been interested in for other projects, and so this seems like a good time to try it. And it is the vector package, which is still in preview because of its Unity, and nothing in Unity is done right now. Like, just look at this list of previews. Lots of preview. And preview, it's hard to say. Does that mean alpha? Does that mean beta? Does that mean release candidate? You don't know. It just means it's not done. So it's a little bit of a concern. But what's cool about this thing is this whole thing is about, I believe, kind of tessellating vector geometry. So you could take in an SVG and it would create geometry for you. Which, that would be one way to think about our creatures, is that we just design, it's all just a bunch of curves, and we're operating with, like, they could be saved SVGs, they could be things we generate on the fly. But that we would then take those, and then this would have some way to make a mesh. The thing I don't know is if the meshes are any good, and is if I have access to the mesh to do stuff that I want to do, like extrude or whatever. So let's install this package and see if it's useful. Because maybe it is, maybe it'll be terrible. I don't know, maybe it's just horrible geometry. If we can get decent geometry and we can have some understanding of the perimeter of the geometry, then we can kind of do extrusions pretty easily. Anything that sort of bulges becomes hard, but I don't know what to do about that yet. I need to take a very short break, and I will see you in a few moments as this installs. Come on back. My voice just cracked. Hello and back. So we want to look at this thing. I don't exactly know how it works. Well, it provides two things: an SVG importer and runtime vector graphics APIs. So I'm guessing that we need an SVG to start with. Let's start a new thing. We built a lot of cool tech for this that I don't know what to do with. I've been pretty indecisive. The state of the world is affecting my reasoning. Okay, so affecting my ability to make a folder. Now, let's pick a scene. Vector. Am I gonna switch to TikTok? Is it time? Maybe that's the secret. Okay, what are we doing? We are doing a new thing. I don't know what would be the best shape to start with. Because we've been doing all this algorithmic stuff, which is fine. It's great, in fact. But there's things about it that are kind of hard, and so I just want to see if this makes things any better or any easier. I'm really curious, like, what's it going to do with this? What will it, when it builds geometry out of this, how's it going to handle the stroke? All of these, a lot of questions. Very curious. So, I think we can just, okay, well, maybe. I think we can just do a save as and do... So, no. That was wrong. That was the wrong thing to do. I want an SVG. I probably don't want it to be compressed. The thing I'm not entirely sure about is if is this going to be happy. Launches a web browser to view the SVG document. Oh, it looks great. Okay, great. Okay. I thought there used to be a checkbox or something you had to do to say that you wanted it to go to the web. I'm still speaking so quickly. I'm gonna work on that. Okay, so generated asset type vector stripe, 243 vertices. So that's actually amazing. That's amazing. But it's not going to show me the wireframe? Wait, is this actually... Or is this just... Did it just lie to me? Maybe I shouldn't have called everything. Now the music is too loud? You're killing me. Okay. How about this number? 12, negative 12 dB. It's still just the happy channel. Is that my problem? Do I need more chill music? We can do the, we've got a chill channel here. But what if it just puts me to sleep? We've been listening to the exact same music for most of 3 years, so what are you? Are you an image? Because when I look here, I don't... Okay, I think I'm wrong about what happened here. I would like to actually see this says it's the SVG importer, pixels per unit, gradient resolution, etc., but it's like I don't actually know what we've created here. This is not what I was expecting. I mean, but I can get way up to it in a way that I would not be able to if this wasn't geometry, right? Like, if I was just getting up this close to a normal sprite. You think I'm gonna snap? Yeah, I mean, I might have. Maybe I've snapped. So it's a bad idea to call all these things vector. Oh, that was also just 100% not the place to put this. 1000% wrong place. Wait, try snapping? You think I should snap? Just lose it? Try to keep relatively level-headed. I just want to make like wholesome videos where I make things and people hang out with me while I do it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I just hit it to the wrong place. And I'm slightly lost in the file system. Okay, that's where that goes. So this, if we said this was a, what? This is a regular old sprite. Yeah, it's gonna get real aliased because this is a normal, that's the normal thing. But then this doesn't seem true that I could get this close with that few vertices. Well, now it says 500. Apparently I changed something. Well, this kind of, okay, two things here. One, this kind of changes everything for some projects that I have in the past that I've never finished because I was annoyed. How did I do this? So an annoying thing about iPhone projects is if there's like 45 different sizes of iPhone screen now, so it's really hard to design assets for certain projects that will work across all of those screen sizes, unless you can do this. Now, it's not the greatest. Like, if you look at it, it's pretty aliasy. It means you can get close, which is great. But maybe when you're actually at 1, it's okay. I still feel like it could be a little smoother, but it's not terrible. Okay, so but what I was hoping is that I could do this and then I would have access to the geometry. Like in a very obvious way. Like I want to see the geometry created. But it's the fact that it uses the sprite renderer is kind of throwing me off a little bit. And maybe it means I don't quite understand what's happening here. Generates triangles with tessellate when testing the path. So, okay, there's a way to check this pretty easily, I guess. that says like 400 vertices and 300 triangles. What did this say? Yeah, 364. So I really want to see the geometry though. But maybe I can't. Okay, well, one, I guess I kind of applaud Unity for creating this in such a transparent way, because that's, you almost wouldn't know, like, but I could just, it's not quite perfect. It's good, it's very good, but it doesn't feel quite perfect. Which maybe that's anti-aliasing. Maybe that's solvable with anti-aliasing. I mean, that looks terrible also, so. Or maybe there's other settings that I could try. A textured sprite. Why are you angry? I don't think I understand the distinction. Just Photoshop it? Or are you complaining about the Photoshop aliasing as well? What is this thing? I mean, texture 2D is just texture. So like a UI element, a UI SVG image. Okay. So this is cool, but I still don't exactly understand what's going on here. I mean, it seems like it's all kind of abstracted away. If I could, you need a tessellated version, which is, I guess, happening under the hood. I want to see the mesh. But that seems like a thing that it's not going to show me. It'll tell me that it has vertices, but... Okay, so if I can do that, because there is this thing... This fill mesh. And it wants a list of geometries. So how do I get that list of geometries? I get it from tessellating a scene. What is a scene? So, something that seems not cool, I guess, is like, I would like to... How do I get a scene from a... Okay, maybe it's time to look at some code. Like if I want a SVG parser, that's probably what I want. Text shader object, import SVG. So I would need a text reader. Nice to have an example. Holds the tessellated scene geometry. See, what gets tricky is though, is to do what I need to do, I need to know about the perimeter specifically, and I worry that I'm not going to get that. Like if I'm going to try to take these and I'm going to try to build my own extrusion, it really depends on what goes inside that. Okay, well this is a little annoying. I had hoped there'd be some slightly more straightforward examples. But if we want a scene info from our SVG, we need to do this. So what is a text reader? Is that a C# thing, or is that a .NET thing? Excuse me? Why don't you show me how to use... Ah! So it would need to be a stream reader, or just something that is a stream reader. So it really should just look something like this. That's funny though. Why not a text asset? That seems weird. Okay, well, what do we want to accomplish here? We probably want a vectorizer. A list of what? A list of the geometries of the points? Or the text asset? Have you been up all night? Aren't you supposed to go to bed? Aren't you supposed to be watching Sudoku videos? Okay, so we need like a path and whatever. And I guess it would be relative to vector SVG. It's like, what? Is it the data path? Let's rename this because it really is going to confuse me. Circle SVG. Okay, I'll sing you a lullaby. A Sudoku lullaby. Okay, yeah, there's just more steps to this than I really want, but that's okay. Maybe we should make editor tools to do it. One more slash. So then we need what? A string reader? String reader. Where? What namespace are we? Text reader class system.io. And now we need this stuff. SVG parser is unity.vector graphics. No? Is that not how you do that? What do you... How do I use this? I don't know. Looks like it's in unity.vectorgraphics, so... Import SVG. I feel like that's probably what I want. It's not actually a namespace. I'm probably making it more complicated. SVG parser. Namespace is unity.vectorgraphics. Oh, so I need... Right, unity.vectorgraphics.svg parser. Right? No. How does this work? I'm just doing something silly, right? So what am I... Do I not need... What? What am I doing wrong? Interesting. Okay, I'm just missing something obvious, apparently. And no one is showing all of their code. Shapes. What? Oh, are these editor only things? Can I only do these in the editor? No, this is just in unity.vectorgraphics. What? Okay, I'm definitely missing something that should be obvious, I guess. Why can't I talk to unity.vectorgraphics.svg parser? So I can't... What? but I can't do this. Wait, now that works? Didn't I just try that a minute ago? Okay, maybe I had some other silly mistake. That's weird, but okay. Okay, so I'm gonna get a scene info, an SVG parser scene info. So really, do I want this? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, is that enough to get the scene? Broken. Can't find this file. Well, of course you can't, because I renamed it to trick you. So who's the actual file? You. Okay, maybe it worked. Who can say? So now we have a scene info, and once we have a scene info, we should be able to do that fill mesh thing. This? No. First we need geometries. So first we have to tessellate this. Can I call this without any options? Where do you live? Where does any of this stuff actually live? Where do you live, tessellate scene? Is that part of SVG parser? Like who knows about tessellate scene? Am I just missing something incredibly obvious? Is it, wait, inside vector utils, where was that? That's tessellation options. Where is tessellate scene? Maybe my brain is just not working. Oh, it's in vector utils. Tessellate a scene, and it wants a and it's going to return geometries. What namespace are you? I have like vector utils, a vector utils.geometry. Is vector utils a namespace? No. What extremely obvious thing am I missing here? So this wants a scene. Wait, that's a scene, not scene info. How do I get from scene info to a scene? SVG parser, scene info. Scene info dot scene. So I do have to have a tessellation options. Okie dokie. Oh, I kind of prefer. Now, where do you live? Are you also in Vector Utils? Did I misspell you? Who can say? Tessellation options. Vector Utils, tessellation options. There's more L's. Okay. I feel like I'm just like making some very silly C# mistakes. So now I have some geometries, and now I can hopefully do the thing that fills a mesh with the geometries. Did you call this Elon Musk music? Why? Why did you call this Elon Musk music, or the last music? Because it sounds like it's from the future? I really heard that as an adjective in that way. Why do you make me specify these things? Vector, are you Vector Utils fill mesh? Okay. Slowly but surely. I mean, it would not have killed Unity to just make an example that did this. So we need pixels per unit. Well, let's just say 128. And flip y-axis is optional. Okay, so we should end up with a mesh filter dot mesh equals mesh. On our vectorizer. Oh, really? They use it on SpaceX casts? My hair's getting crazy. I guess everybody's is, but oh well. So if I add a mesh filter and I add a mesh renderer and hit run, gotta be honest, this has been more obnoxious than I thought it was gonna be. So apparently my tessellation options are unsatisfactory because it doesn't have sensible defaults, I assume. Like, it has defaults here somewhere. Where did those go? SVG importer, gradient resolution, we did the pixels per unit, tessellation settings advanced. So we need a step distance of 10, sampling steps 100. I don't know what these numbers mean, but we'll learn. We'll learn later. Yeah, sure. Okay, we made a circle that's over there. Which I still don't seem to get. I have view wireframe turned on, right? And this is selected. So why am I not seeing the wireframe? Like if I just created a cube, there's a nice wireframe. Is it because it's not rendering? Because I need a material? Okay, there's our wireframe. It's not pretty, but I get it. Wow, weird choice. Look at that overlapping geometry. So, well, I'm actually a little disappointed in that. But I guess it kind of makes sense. That must be a different submesh. But well, it's not. Well, that's even weirder. So, you've been up all night and it's 6:30 p.m. What are you doing? You're out of control. Go to bed. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out for a while. So this is the geometry it built, which I don't like it, but I guess it's like more general purpose. You know, of course there's ways you could build geometry for a circle that was not so ridiculous. This stroke makes a bit more sense though, because I suspect we'd find a line, probably maybe over here. Yeah, that was perfectly perpendicular. And then I think it probably just follows along and then just builds points on the inside and the outside of the curve. I don't really understand why. It's a little confusing trying to see what exactly they're doing. So maybe let's not have a fill for a second and just see how they do the perimeter, because I feel like that's the more interesting part. Okay, and then we will want to vectorize again. So many messages. Okay. We forgot to put a material. That's okay. Let's do this material. Although I still don't. Why doesn't it render? Oh, that must be the default material, like the actual default material. So it can be not like it just some unlit material. Doesn't actually matter very much. So, okay, here's how they do this. And it's a little weird. It's a little weird. But I think I get it. I don't like it, though, unfortunately. I was hoping I would like it, but I think I don't like it. So, well, we can be broken. That's fine. What it looks like they do is starting at a given point, which is probably here. They figure out there's a central line, so they know that a line comes through here, and then they know that there's the center point of the line. And so they can figure out, I guess, probably a cross product to figure out these 2 points as starting points. And then it looks like they come up with points that run around this perimeter, all the way around the perimeter. It gets pretty gross. In fact, maybe they do it by segments. That's what it maybe more looks like. Maybe that's what that segment sampling, those settings are. And then after the fact, go back and figure out how to triangulate, like some triangulation approach that says, okay, I got a bunch of points on this curve, and I've got a bunch of points on this curve. How am I gonna triangulate? I think I personally would have done it not this way. I would have followed along and just picked points along the main curve, and then maybe this makes it curvier. I don't know. Points along this main curve, and how would I do this? Pick points along this curve, because we could always figure that out. Like as we're going along making our curves, we could figure out a point here and cross product, and then put 2 dots here, and then just slice that, make a quad essentially, and then slice it. And I think you'd need fewer triangles to do that. But I'm probably thinking with, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm thinking of very specific. Maybe my idea breaks down in something that's not as simple as a circle. We're perpendicular again here. It's just weird that it gets so gross. It's also weird that like this arc is relatively clean. This arc is a mess. Like I really don't like the geometry. So that's not very promising. If we, well, okay, a few things. That means we just don't like that tessellation. But that does still mean we could use the scene info and we could do maybe our own tessellation, which would be kind of annoying, but not the most annoying thing, I guess. Okay, my apologies. I have to take another break. I will be back very soon. Bye. See you in a second. Hi, it's me again. Okay, so let's speak a little more slowly. Cool it. Relaxing moment. Okay, so I was just thinking a little bit. So I don't want to presume to say that I could do a better job with what they've done, which is create a general purpose SVG importer that seems to do very nice work. This geometry looks gross to me, but it could be, it's probably fine. It does the job, presumably. And maybe there's just reasons, general purpose reasons for how they're generating that it makes sense to do that. Seems a little weird to me, but I assume the people at Unity working on this know more about tessellation than I do, which is not a ton. I don't know a ton. So, but I will say, for the purposes of what I need to accomplish, this geometry does not feel very good. I would prefer much more... It's a little hard to know. I wish we could see the vertices a little more easily. Like why isn't there a vertex here? There's just something about the distribution of the vertices that also makes it a little complicated, like a little hard for me to wrap my mind around. Because I would want to say, well, I want the same number of vertices outside and inside, and I want them distributed in the same way. But that doesn't really look like what is happening. And I don't understand that. And the results look fine. But I feel like if I was going to say, like, well, it's time to shrink this and move it in and down slightly to make it a fillet or chamfer, and then move that down slightly and then connect it inside, I feel like that would start to get messy. I feel like it would not be very clean geometry. But on the other hand, I don't really want to build all that myself. It'd be kind of annoying to do. Figure out the strokes. In fact, you don't even care about strokes, because a stroke is really just extrude some fixed distance from where the border is. If your vertices are going to match, which I think they do for our forms, for our radial forms. Like, we know we can get the shape very easily. And we can get it with well, that's not true. I was about to say something that isn't true. I was going to say, we could get it with a distribution of points that was uniform, but it's not, because what we are doing is messing with the points. So, like, not so much. Sorry, I need 1 second. Okay, so I'm gonna weigh some pros and cons here. Like, the idea of operating in a sort of vector world is appealing to me because some of these shapes are very easy to make algorithmically. Like, we've made many of them. Some of them are more complicated. So what's really complicated about this? So, like, some of them are just weird. Like, we could come up with a formula to make this thing, whatever this thing is. I think it was a quarter circle that we then rounded, but that's not easy. That's not totally trivial to make. Versus if it was just like, oh, we just have a pedal kind of prefab vector piece that then we have a tool that's going to extrude and build out. Now, of course, I could manually do all of that. How did I lose my internet connection? That's frustrating. I feel like I'm having major technology problems lately. Is it back? No, it's 0. Nice try. So do I just not have an internet connection at this point? Sure appears that way. It definitely feels like a week where the world is working against me. Okay, well, excuse me for a moment, and I will go unplug the router and plug it back in. Of course, no one's seeing this live, but on YouTube, this is fun tech problems to deal with. Be right back. Okay, well, I'm just gonna stream for a while because I'm rambling anyway, and we'll be back online when we're back online. So, what was I saying? I was talking about this geometry. I was talking about generating this geometry, and I was talking about these friends that we have. So circles, feel circles are pretty easy. Pretty easy. They're pretty easy to make. They're pretty easy to have uniform distributions of points. I would be interested to come up with a way that after we distorted it, we could still have a uniform distribution of points, but then the distortion isn't the same. Like every time we distort, the number of points changes. So that's actually bad. So many notifications. I'm gonna put my phone over there where it's a little less distracting. So, so as we generate, so the body, we know that we can go from a circle to a triangle to any of these points relatively easily. So there's kind of the primitive outlines that are a circle. A 2-pointed one doesn't make much sense, but we could kind of have it maybe football shaped. A 3-pointed one, we could have a square that we don't have here, but a square body, pentagonal body, just as primitive body types. Hexagon, octagon, like we can do those things. Maybe we don't ever go above 8. So that's just a set of objects. There's no need to distort those really, unless maybe the one parameter you would want is how rounded the corners are. Filleting, which filleting's a little annoying, but we can figure it out. Then you have the warbly ones, which is really just this one, because this one's based on a primitive. So in fact, you could say that we just have some primitives that are star primitives. The thing about these, though, is you don't just care about the fillet. Maybe you do. Maybe I just changed my mind about this. So maybe if this is a star and you draw the fillet, you have an inner fillet, an outer fillet, and an inner radius and an outer radius. And that's how you can create these things. So actually, that means this is just a 10-sided object with half the sides sort of pulled in a little bit. That would also work for 8-sided objects. It would give you 4 little arms. 6-sided objects would give you 3 little arms. So it's almost like our primitives could also have a point in the middle that could pull. So all of our primitives could really have double the geometry they really needed. So let's just imagine that for a minute. We can draw these shapes and we learn how to fill it, which is basically just says take a pointed edge and make it a curve. And I've looked into that and I see how to do it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's totally a doable thing. As you change the fillet, you probably change the geometry though. Like you change the number of points around the radius. But what would that mean? So we have these primitives. Say we have a circle, probably skip 2, but a circle, a triangle, a square, a pentagon. We could go up to octagon, higher than that, but then when we start to subdivide them, they start to have a ton of arms. What does that mean for the 5? Yeah, the 4, that could work. 6-sided. We end up with some weird shapes. But maybe that's okay. It basically means a 6-sided thing could become a 6-pointed thing. And an 8-sided thing could become an 8-pointed thing. So going up to 8 doesn't seem too bad. So maybe we should just start thinking about these in Illustrator a little bit. Are these the creatures? Just kind of thinking about some of these body forms and what they mean. So thinking about a triangle. A triangle could be a triangle. A triangle could have rounded corners like this. A triangle could also, if we had hidden subdivisions. Are we still not back on the internet? It takes so long for cable modems to reconnect. If we wanted to add anchor points in them, oh, there already are anchor points here. Okay, so if we have these anchor points, well, Illustrator's not very good, but if Illustrator was good, we could easily do something like this and have a thing that's 3-pointed that way, or kind of 3-pointed that way. I mean, if it was like this, then it really is just a hexagon, but then it would be a hexagon without those central points. So it'd be a little different than an actual hexagon. So that from this geometry, we could get something shaped like this or something shaped like this. And we would make sure the center was more correct, but yeah, it's really irritating. Really be a little higher up, a little higher, like whatever in there somewhere. So you can make a creature like this, and then again we could round kind of the outer points and get a creature like this. We could round the inner points. They'd be a little weirder. Like coming up with what a good radius would be for that, I don't exactly know how we would decide on that. That one's a little tricky. There is the idea that I could be operating on all this stuff in Bezier. Like building these the way they're built in Illustrator, Bezier curves. Could be an idea. It's hard. These are hard problems. Doing it this way, at least, is pretty hard. Doing it with the polar coordinate way that we were doing it previously is easier than this. If these corners aren't rounded, this is actually pretty easy. But it's the rounded corners that kind of surprising. Well, music. That must mean we're on the internet. Welcome back to the internet. Okay, so OBS will be back on shortly. So that helps us with, I mean, this shape could really just be that. Or circles are special in some way, whatever. That technique gets us this, like drawing a primitive. But the question really becomes like, what do I gain from that? So here's the thing about how this could work. It could either be there's a million parts and you just kind of assemble those parts, which there's something to that, and maybe pick the number of things. Yeah, well, that would be it, essentially. You're like picking and choosing your parts in whatever way, and then kind of choosing the radial symmetry of those parts. And actually, that's another way to think of this. That's another thing to remember here, is that we only ever have to care about one slice of our... We only ever have to care about one slice of whatever radial geometry we're drawing. And sometimes we can have just strokes around things. Yeah, I'm still not quite finding the solution. It's tough because there's a lot of ways to approach this and they all have pluses and minuses. Hello, I think I'm back on Twitch. Welcome back to me. It's me, Scott. So like our radial way gets us a lot of circles. And we have a lot of circles. We have circular eyeballs. We have circular bodies. So a way to do circles is probably wise. Basically, where we would make a circular perimeter, draw some geometry in it, kind of extrude that sort of backwards so it had walls, extrude it kind of outwards for a stroke, and then extrude it back down. And we could, of course, add some kind of chamfer, some kind of fillet or whatever, if we wanted to. Yeah, you could figure out the middle point. I don't think it would be too hard, actually. We'd maybe have to do some drawings of that, but I think with Pythagorean theorem, I think you could figure out how to subdivide and get those sections. Boy. Alternatively, we have something that's all SVG based, and it can take in a form with the assurance that that form... that's not true. I was about to say with the assurance that that form has radial symmetry, but it doesn't necessarily. But we could kind of pretend. Maybe, like, if I could take in this form and know this shape, if I was like, yep, that's one of our primitive shapes, And I could just say, great, I'm going to look at all these points, pick the middle of it, and just draw around at whatever angle I like. And that's not the best way to draw something like this, probably. But I think it would work. So that came in just as a path, essentially. And then I can make paths all day and just know that they're enclosed. I'm trying to think if they can be concave and still do that. As long as they're not like looping back on each other, which would break this whole strategy. Like basically I have to have a point and then I have to say from that point I can see every part of this. That feels kind of good. But then I'm still locked to like because like how do I make this shape? There's probably some parametric way to make this shape, but I don't know if I care. For like the things that are sort of decorative pieces, like how much do I really care? Now it would be good to be able to on the fly decide how big the stroke is or things like that. That ends up being a lot of calculation. Quite a lot of calculation. But since it's always radial, I only really have to do the calculation one time, I think. And then maybe that gives me a way to make weird primitives that I can clone around, still be able to control their stroke. Something like this gets weird though. Like when they're this big, I guess they could get, you'd need some way to know that, well, I'm gonna have 4 of these so they can be a certain size, but if I have more, then they have to be smaller. You know, there'd have to be some relationship between the way the thing's scaled. You'd have to have some understanding of its size, probably. Because something that could be really nice from that is then I can just draw a million little shapes. Now the place that breaks down though, that's kind of lame, is this place where it is actually nice that this conforms to this curve, even though I think it technically isn't perfect. Unless I like really scale this down and say there's some set of body primitives. I just don't know if that's as fun. But maybe it is. So I was just trying to imagine, it's like, well, is there a way to do this where like these are defined as just their little pie slices? But that may be what I need to do here, really, is have these kits of parts, but and also like how do I deal with some of these things? Like maybe eyeballs are always on top, so it's okay. Like, these lines wouldn't go between here unless that was a certain kind of thing. But I think if eyeballs are always... I don't know. It's just... The 3D makes this so hard. Like... And I just am not sure how much I think it really adds. It's cool. But it really adds a lot of complexity. Like, how do I make this guy like that? Do I have some rule that, like, well, eyeballs are above those strokes, but like... Or is this not a stroke? It's actually a very skinny body with no stroke. Because if they are strokes, then suddenly I have to know, like, well, when you draw that line, you've got to crop it so that it doesn't come out into the center of the eyeball. Or are strokes always on the same level and surfaces extrude over them? Would be another option. It would be kind of the opposite of this. Surfaces were always on top of strokes. And then eyeballs have to be on top. Oof. Well, that doesn't really solve this problem. Why is this so hard? It's like this tightrope between giving a lot of options and a lot of agency and a lot of flexibility and making it an achievable thing to build. Because how interesting is it to build just this guy? I like this guy, but like, you know, if you come to the museum, somebody already built this guy. That guy could be different colors, the eye could be a little different, the shape could be a little different, but it's like, you kind of already built that guy. I'm just trying to imagine now is some other way, like some other method of authoring that is less about just sliding sliders and parametric, is a little more hands-on. And maybe ideally not touchscreeny, but it's like, if I give you 5 body shapes and 5 things that can be cloned around body shapes, That's not a lot of variation. You know, like if it's just about primitives, another thing that's nice about the primitives is they could be, probably find a way to automate that, but they could be they could look nice. You know, they could maybe have ambient occlusion and that stuff baked in if they could be more bespoke assets. If you kind of chose your symmetry, so the fundamental thing, the very basic thing maybe should be you choose your symmetry. Like you choose the number of divisions. So the highest symmetry we have, I guess, is this one has, is that 12? But you could imagine like, well, maybe actually it's whatever, 4, and there just happens to be 3 of these per, you know, that it's an illusion of having more when it's really, it's 6 and there's 2 per or something like that. Now, would I always want the eyeballs to match that? I guess so. I mean, this really could have 3-fold symmetry. Just happens to be that these curves follow along and end up making a circle if they were sort of segments. So you got your symmetry. You can have an eyeball in the middle, or you can have an eyeball per segment. Is that always true, or you can have both? Yeah, even this one really just has 3 little guys per. It's not a different cloning, really. It's just that there happens to be 3 of them in a quadrant. But I just don't exactly know how much that helps me. That kind of cuts out some. I mean, the holes and things are really kind of difficult. If these were just polka dots or spots or something, but placing these things without just having your hands on it, it kind of has to be a touchscreen then. And how do you keep it simple enough, like with things on top of other things? And like, how do you make it a simple enough experience? I don't know. I'm struggling here a little bit. Let's do this. I think I need to shift gears a little bit because I feel like I'm just hung up on this authoring process, both the technical part of it and the user experience part of it. I'm definitely struggling with. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's just think for a minute about that drawing exercise we did yesterday and like what it means to draw like this. So we talked about like a My Oats version. And why is it called that? I don't know. That was my beautiful drawing from yesterday. Experiment with different numbers of sides. So I'm kind of imagining now oh, okay. This is a pretty big shift. But could be cool. It's a big change. Definitely a big change. But I kind of like it because it's a little more hands-on, maybe. Like a way I think this might be a better idea and it would solve me a lot of problems. It's a pretty big change, but it could be, man, this changes everything kind of in the early half of the project, which is the authoring of these tools, which is the part that I'm struggling with so much and actually not enjoying very much, both in terms of figuring out the right interaction and figuring out the right the right tech underneath. But here's what I'm kind of imagining now. I'm kind of imagining a camera-based solution. Where you have like all kinds of parts and materials, and you can bring your own, and you can do your own stuff, and you make your own thing, and then maybe I use some computer vision stuff to bring some of those pieces to life. Kind of into it. It might be crazy. It's probably crazy, but I'm kind of into it. So what would that actually look like? And how could we make it really work? Like the eyeball in the middle. It could be that there's always eyeballs in the middle, or that the eyeballs are kind of computer vision-y. Like that's like the eyeballs are added on top. Maybe eyeballs are added wherever it sees a whole circle or something like that. Like it's like, oh, that's a circle. It could be an eyeball. That might be too creepy. It'd be a little hard to put eyeballs in the middle then, if we're doing this pie slice thing, but not impossible. Okay. At the moment, I like this better. At the moment, I like this idea. It might be a bad idea, but I kind of want to pursue it a little bit. Where it's way more of a hands-on thing. Like you're just doing stuff. You could draw drawings or sticks or pencils or paper or whatever it is. Pieces, laser cut pieces of acrylic, wood, like other kinds of objects. And then you can do that. And then your creature is somehow brought to life a little bit. That feels like less, that's more like a thing I haven't seen before. It makes it way less of a software problem. Oof, do I like this idea? I might like it. So how could we test this? We did write a shader that takes, so our Kaleidoscope Shader, how did that work? Okay, this might be a crazy thing where I'm like, this is a big change. It's a pretty huge change. But I don't know. I'm not, I've liked some of the studies we've done, but this generative geometry part, I'm not loving. Not loving it. Okay, so we made, I don't remember what we called that. We called it scope because I never know how to spell kaleidoscope. Yes, save that very important circle. So the way we did this was we had a camera with this shader, and this was like, I mean, who knows what's going on now. And we're rotating it. Okay. This is a lot. Okay, don't rotate it. Let's just look at what we got for a second. What did I do here? So that's like how we multiplied there, and that's how many times we. What did we do here? So yeah, we're just doing that. So that's not quite what we'd want to do. We'd want to do something a little different. Also, how would we animate it? Could see the eyeball looking around. So how would we do this? If we wanted to say, take a slice we'd need a different shader, but that's fine. I was trying to think through what the exact logic would be. It would be like it's tricky to like make sure they look good and make sure there's like no bad words and people don't just stick their hand in it and whatever. Like, it gets a little weird. And the boundary, it's tricky. It's a tricky problem. Because you want to kind of key it. So how do you know how to key? How do you know what to cut out? What to keep, kind of? Must be a flat surface with a middle point, and then you could decide what slice of it was going to be. Okay, let's just try something. New folder, camera. And really, what it kind of comes down to is I'm not having fun with the with the algorithmic stuff. Like I'm just not. Feels like I'm been banging my head against it for a while. I still love the radial symmetry. I still want this project to be about radial symmetry, but the algorithmic generative geometry stuff, like, I spent a lot of time on it, but maybe it's just not serving me well. Okay, so if we made how would we do this? If we made a PBR graph, we kind of want to convert from polar to Cartesian and then back to polar. Or something like that. So let's get a UV texture in here just so we know what's going on. Actually, I don't really want you to be lit. How do I do this? Make an unlit, make it active, and then delete this one. Okay, and we want to sample texture TD. And we want to do this. And we probably want a quad. Okay, so you can be 0. And you can be at 0. No, be 0. And you can be orthographic. And I think you can be 0.5. Okay. So that's if we just drew it. So what I wanted to kind of do is like say, well, how do I get a slice of this? And then have everybody sample the slice, which I think means convert my coordinates to polar coordinates, mess with the angle, and then convert them back. Like go to polar coordinates, which I guess one of these is the angle and one of these is the there was a way to just go from this straight to documentation. Open documentation. How about that? Distance value and y is the angle. Okay, so if we split this, so x is distance and y is angle. And then to go back to Cartesian coordinates is what? I don't think I can actually do that here. I think I have to make a custom. spell that correctly. Cartesian coordinates. And it needs an angle and a radius. And a radius. I think there's a way to do it with just rotation. Oh, I don't know. And we'll output a vector 2. And we'll make a string. Angle, radius, position. This UV. Oh, just UV. Which is UV is equal to, I can't remember, let's see. Or UV at X, card, polar to Cartesian. UV.x equals oh wait, I know. That's easy. That's not true. It's just the cosine of the angle times the cosine of angle times the radius. That's not difficult. I was thinking the other way around. Is the sine of the angle times the radius. What's wrong? U should be a vector 2. No. Okay, and then if now this gets, I already forgot what we said, which is which. One is the radius and one's the angle. We said that X is the radius. Well, let's just switch these so it's great. And Y is the angle. So I did it wrong. X, Y is the angle of rotation around that point. And X should be equal to the cosine of the angle times the radius. I did this correctly, right? Y is the angle. I need to add 2 to this, or add 0.5 to this, I think. I mean, this is insane. I like it. It's kind of insane. Whereas there's actually subtract. Okay, I need to think for a second. I have an angle, it's around the center. So, oh, center is already specified here. Right, so I don't need to do that actually. Scale length. You're good, you're good, you're good. My custom function, x equals radius times cosine, y equals sine times radius of the angle. Is it a radians versus degree things? Those are radians, it looks like. And these are probably radians. Okay, just to be sure that these aren't backwards. I don't think they are. Great. We're ending up with some very interesting distortions here, but not what I want, actually. So I don't understand why I can't just go right back. Only guess is this, but this doesn't really seem right. Well, that's beautiful, but unless there's a crazy offset because of this. Like why? I don't understand. Like even if it was offset, why would it still have any kind of radialness to it? So red is definitely the radius. We can just see that here. And green is definitely the angle. Radius and angle. And then I'm taking the radius as the cosine of the angle times the radius. Why is it screwed up? I didn't really change anything to that. Well, I'm just missing some critical thing. There's something about... Is it doing something else? Not this. Like, what else is happening inside this function? Maybe it's doing something else that's messing us up. Subtracting that center. Not really sure why this becomes a 2. Is this really the best way to do this also? There are other... This would just rotate, like, not repeat. I mean, this kind of does the job, but not really. This doesn't really. Oops. It's not exactly what I want, though. Like, I want a slice of this. That's really what I want to do. I just want to take one slice of it and draw. I can almost just do it with UVs. I'm confused why I'm having so much trouble with this, though. Like, why does my polar... Because what I was thinking is that we would do is take each angle, get the points where we want, convert them, and then just rotate it amount that we wanted and then convert them back. So I'm pretty confused why the polar coordinates appears to be so wrong. There is an offset, so we would correct that, but that doesn't really explain the distortion. This one's a little weird, like the radius times 2. I don't think I exactly understand that. So like even if we took this out of the equation, that'd be 0. It'd be radius would be 2. UV minus the center. Well, that's weird because this could be 0. right? All right, then it would just be whatever the UV number was. So whatever the length of that is. I don't know why it's times 2. Okay, well, I'm just gonna make my own function because I'm getting pretty confused. And I'm not gonna, we won't worry about getting in and out of polar coordinates just yet. I do have to leave pretty soon though, or get ready for a call. Not leave the apartment, but this would UV, UV2, and the outputs, radius, and angle. And it's going to be a string, and it's going to be Cartesian to polar. And we want to say that radius is equal to the length of UV, and angle is equal to a tan 2 UV dot x divided by UV dot x dot y divided by UV dot x. Is that correct? I don't think so. Oh, it's ATN2 takes both. Okay, so if this was just like, ditch all this for a minute, because it just, everything feels wrong. So let's get some UVs, and let's put it in here. And we get something that looks kind of like a thing. And you get the radius, and you get the angle, and we come back out the other side, and it looks right. And it's just the upper left quadrant, because now I need to add what? It's negative 0.5, negative 0.5. Should put that in the middle. And then back here on this side, I need to add it. Add that back. So we should be back to where we want to be. So then the thing that I wanted to do is mess with the angle, I think. I'm a little confused by what I'm getting here. D4 was the middle. Or maybe actually the way to do it is something weird like this. Interesting. That's like kind of right. Like this little slice over here, we get the slice. So that was 10 slices. 0.628. Funny that this one doesn't seem right. Unless that just actually works out to be the proper... I don't think so. Something flips from the top to the bottom. Because I really only want like 5 slices here. So maybe this strategy, the way I was thinking of it, doesn't actually work right. What's going on? I didn't even see Schmelly York. I haven't seen you in so long. Your name is so hard to read in the blue on the dark. So up top, left, right, bottom. That's kind of what but then why is this happening? Why is this side undistorted? And 2 times this. I just do math in here. Like we get these little fans of, I'm gonna say 70. It gets really confusing because of the lines dividing this, but like with a different image, maybe it'd be easier to see. No, definitely not. What am I doing? This is not working the way I expected it to work. I thought we'd have like this segment and then it would just repeat that over and over again. By like going through the angle and then basically resetting. Which would be what mod would do, right? And if this is a proper fraction of a, like 3.14 should just be half. But that doesn't make any sense. Why would rotating this angle am I losing my mind? How can that be? Would be 180. Oh, maybe that starts negative. Maybe it's like a negative. I guess I don't know what that... It could be like negative... I don't know if that really makes a difference. Oh, let's see. Yes, okay, that's better. So it must be... the range... I was thinking the range would be 0 to 2 pi, but it seems like the range is like negative pi to pi. So now we have a beautiful reflection. So we would need to say, we could put pi. Do I have actually pi in here? There's no constant for pi? That seems weird, right? Really? How's there no pi? I thought I used pi. Maybe that was in the VFX graph. I mean, okay, just we'll approximate pi for the moment. 2 pi, really. Where did I swear I just used that in a Unity graph. It must have been in the VFX graph. Okay, so 6.28. And then sum divide into here, into here. So now if we change this to 3, we hopefully get 3 equal segments. No, we don't. What have I done? This is, what? Do what now? Do I need the absolute? That doesn't make sense. I mean, it like almost does the thing, but it doesn't really do the thing. What am I? What's my problem? Like, it's kind of right, except for here's not right. And I thought that absolute value fixed it. Because it seemed like it did for a second, but apparently not. I mean, that's just reflecting this. That's not really what I want, though. I want this rotated here. There's just, like, something's happening at the 180. And I don't think I'd have to, like, really sit and think about it to figure out what that meant. Just out of curiosity. What if we, whoa, cool. We're making beautiful artwork. It's not what I mean to do, but I still love it. I mean, the clamping is definitely making things a little weird, also. What? Am I wrong that this is in radians? I know. Beautiful. I'm like a Photoshop professional. I don't even need Photoshop. This has got to be radians, right? It must be. Well, that'd be 4 across a 180. So strange. So if we did offset this by -0.5 to put it in the middle of an image, maybe that's my problem, is I don't want to put it back. Okay, that's sort of closer. It still doesn't. Oh wait, okay, 6.28. 4 segments. We should get a little pinwheel. Okay, we have a little pinwheel. It's not the same part of the image though, which is what is really confusing to me. Do I need 2 mods? Like one mod that restricts it to 180 degrees? That doesn't exactly make sense, but maybe it kind of vaguely makes sense. Okay, that one restricts it to 180 degrees. So is this our pretty mirrored lake? No. Did I not do this back? Okay, wait, we gotta do this again. Why does that have no effect? Wait, okay, but this absolute value does matter for this part. Well, that is awesome. Oh, because we just mod 0. What have I done? Why is the absolute value of the angle okay, just this. Gets our pretty mirror. Great. And make it I'm just getting this all wrong. Oh, in fact, I kind of want it. Well, okay. I just thought of another thing related to this radial symmetry is the way we like it. I think we also like if it's also mirrored inside the slices. So we would need to slice and mirror what was going on in like one portion. I kind of feel like I'd have an easier time with this on a mesh where just the UVs were laid out the way, you know, kind of exactly where I wanted them, rather than this just is not working the way it was going to work in my head. Pretty weird. It almost works, but there's some like something's flipping that I'm just not understanding. Some terrible mistake I'm making. And I don't know why. I mean, we could just manually flip the Y beforehand. Or, I mean, it also could be that this shift up is messing with us and that we just don't ever want to do that. The repeating of the image doesn't help me either. Okay, I obviously need to think about this more. I have to go get ready for a call, unfortunately. So I am going to call it for today. I don't know. So I'm definitely at a pivotal crossroads here, because I am finding that I'm just not really I'm not really enjoying the like generative algorithmic shape stuff. Like I liked it when we were doing our studies, but as far as making that really the crux of the project, I'm having doubts about it. I'm having some concerns about it. And just like making it such a screen-based experience. There's a way that I can make it where it's like, actually, you're just gonna put cool stuff down and I bring it to life in some way. So I don't know. I'm truly a bit torn. So I'm gonna think about that more. Thanks for stopping by today, and we will stream again tomorrow. Have a lovely day.